Hey everyone, welcome to Hooper's Radar. I hope everyone has been well. Today's video will be sort of a project. I want to thank you all so much for 100 subscribers. The support has been insane. I promise a lot more awesome content is on the way, but in thanks for this 100 subscriber milestone, I'll be discussing where I started YouTube and giving a channel update. Now, I'm an ordinary NBA fan like most of you, and I love basketball in whichever way I can experience it. I'm a high school hooper myself, and play on my current team. I also do track and field and cross country. That's some background on me. You probably would ask me, with 3 sports, why would you want to start a YouTube channel and add even more to your plate? Well, if I'm honest with you, all those sports are really fun, don't get me wrong, but they are also very serious, and I don't get to be creative and have my own free space when I do those sports. Sometimes these sports seem more like a task and job I must do than something that is more like a hobby. The sport tends to become a lot more serious and task driven than I expected, and I wanted to find a way to express my creative space and love for sports, specifically basketball, through a free and fun way in which I can do whatever I feel is right and express my own opinion on it. That is where my thought process began. TikTok, YouTube, Discord, or I could just become another NBA fan that tweets all day or replies to Kevin Durant's burner accounts. But for me, if I was going to voice my opinion and go real in depth on sports topics like the NBA, I wanted to do it, and rightfully so. I wanted to build a community around it that I could genuinely be proud of. I saw YouTube as the best opportunity and by far the best platform to put my plan into action and do it the right way. I came up with the idea that my content will be mainly around NBA discussed topics that for you guys are mainly touched on by popular YouTubers like Flight Mike, Jimmy High Roller, Funky Diabetics, Rusty Buckets, Swish Out, and other guys. With that said, I began my search for a good brand name. I thought of many names and did my research on how many YouTubers even had that name. And then one name hit me. It just clicked. Hooper's Radar. Nobody seemed to really have this name. I just instantly liked the rhythm it had to it. It appealed to Hoopers, and like a radar, it kept things around it updated and tracked. A good definition and catch to the name made it stick for me. Things like the logo and banner came easy after, and came so natural. And soon it was time to put out my first video and plan content as Hooper's Radar now. At the time, the Rudy Gobert trade to the Wolves was the biggest current topic, so I decided to do my first video on that. I didn't want to do a cringe intro to my channel video, so I stuck with the Gobert video. I was very new to the NBA discussion content area of YouTube, so I didn't know how to edit images and highlights into my videos, leaving my videos with a lot more desire on the visually appealing aspect. I sucked at thumbnails at the time too, so that didn't help. I know I'm only a couple months into YouTube, but I'm telling this story because I feel like I've genuinely improved in a short amount of time, even though there's still much improvement to be made, of course. Of course, that Rudy Gobert video came out, and like every channel that starts, it didn't get much attention. I started to promote my up-and-coming plans and videos as an NBA discussion YouTuber on Discord, and some would seem interested while others didn't care. This at the time was my best and only way of getting my videos out and receiving feedback. Without promoting on Discord, I don't think my videos would have done too great or have gotten to where they are now, which says a lot. But these are the things that small beginner channels always face and struggle with. That said, I moved forward and put out my tier list video along with other videos like my Colin Sexton one and Blazers video, which if you have not seen, please go check out, especially the Colin Sexton one. That is one of my best improved videos. Eventually, for those of you who have been with me from the start, you would have noticed I was only uploading roughly once a week at the beginning. But because I started to see more success, I started uploading about every 5 days and sometimes would bring it down to 4. I still follow the 4 to 5 day pattern because it's been working for me, but uploading every 2 to 3 days is eventually the goal. I want to be more consistent, of course. The only thing right now that's holding me back is school. It has me tied up. I try to be significant in quality with every new video to make up for the usual 5-day wait nowadays, so let me know in the comments if it's worth it. I always appreciate feedback, negative or positive, so don't hold back on me. It's been a fun grind so far in what has only been 3 months of doing YouTube. I've seen solid progress for sure, and I appreciate all those that are willing to tune in, even if it's only for 10 seconds. I truly appreciate your time. All my subscribers mean a lot because each subscriber is a stepping stone in my goal to the eventual 1,000 subscriber milestone. So if you haven't subscribed at this point and you've been watching, thank you for watching until this long, and I would appreciate you dropping a sub for me. I promise you won't regret it because I have so much in store, and Hooper's Radar is really only truly getting started. After a couple of solid discussion videos I put out, I decided to try out shorts and collaborated with some people on those shorts, since I wasn't a short creator myself. I decided to get into shorts because thanks to the influence of TikTok and their shorts video trend, YouTube created shorts, and as a result of this trend, YouTube shorts are booming and absolutely doing numbers on YouTube. I'm mainly a discussion video type of guy, but I wanted to try out shorts just to tap into that market a little bit and get a taste of it. To my result, what I thought was a pretty decent first short for me didn't blow up like the other shorts would. I don't know how I don't know how YouTube filters shorts, but they seem more likely to blow up due to the demand for them. I'll truly never stop making shorts because we all have to make use of these trends correctly, but I'm going to stick to what I'm best at, which is NBA discussion videos. But shorts are an interesting twist on content for sure. After all, shorts are basically what all the videos on TikTok are, and that is the most popular social media app and platform right now. I'm always thinking of new ideas on YouTube content, and at the time, I had my Twitter account for Hooper's Radar, which I wasn't using too often at all. Inspired by one of my favorite NBA YouTubers, Hoops Reference. Shout out to you, my man. I've always been a big fan of his hot takes videos. I decided to come up with my own hot takes series. Since I didn't have a community tab due to YouTube subscriber goals, I decided to host the entry for hot takes on a post from my Twitter account. I succeeded in getting enough takes on there, not only for the first episode, but also for the second. With the election of a couple people who DM'd me their take on Discord. I also accepted those people because they didn't know at the time it was a Twitter post, so it was also an exception. I was excited for this series because I felt like it was a great opportunity to start involving my viewers and showcase their voices into a collective video in which I pretty much replied to their takes in depth. For me, it was the first step in communication between the creator and his viewers, so I definitely was proud of that video, especially when it took me 2 whole days to make, and those were 2 very long days. My longest spent video so far as well. Man, I felt like I needed a break after that video, but I couldn't stop the grind, you know. I've really only put out a short and a top 5 point guards video since that, but I promise I've been working on multiple videos at once. The last 2 videos, which have been short, are pretty much just a cool down period to hold up the time while I've been cooking up some bangers. Hot Takes episode 2 being part of those bangers. Sometimes I just need my cool down breaks to plan bigger pieces of content, so I put out small edits or shorts to fill in time. Quality shorts and edits, of course. I would never try to do you guys dirty like Naruto did me with all these boring filler episodes. Just a reminder, bless you if you are still watching, but please stay updated with me through Twitter at Hooper's Radar. All opportunities and chances to get any sort of your involvement or voice on my channel will be announced through here, so my Twitter is very important. Stay tuned. Man, you guys truly aren't ready for the content I'll be dropping soon. It's been a long week, but it's almost time, so stay tuned. Like I said, I started YouTube to express my love for basketball in a way that is different from playing it, and lets me be more free and fun with it. Through this passion, I really want to build something special and build a large community like some of the biggest NBA YouTubers like Jimmy High Roller and Kenny For Real. That would be amazing. It would truly mean a lot. I understand it's going to take a lot of work, so I hope you guys are ready for the journey. Alright guys, so in honorary of hitting 100 subscribers, I will also be doing an NBA player tier list listing whether players are superstars, all-stars, elite role players, decent assets, or just bad players in general. Aside from my why I started segment of the video, which is about 10 minutes, if you guys like that, please let me know. I will be also doing this long tier list in commemoration for 100 subscribers, so please enjoy. So begin with our first player, we have Steven Adams. I gotta say, Steven Adams is a pretty solid asset, but he's a very elite role player in his role. But damn, that's a hard one. I'm gonna go solid asset just because Steven Adams is the type of guy that will give you 10 and 10, and although that isn't exactly the most elite role player, he is a very solid asset and has always been super reliable. So I'm going to go Steven Adams for this one. Next, we have Bam Adebayo. Come on, guys. We all know Bam is an all-star. He's already made the all-star before. He plays amazing defense every single year. So I'm putting Bam at all-star. If he wasn't on the Heat just wouldn't be that great of a defensive team still. So Bam does a lot of things, and he plays the 5 undersized at 6'9". Next, we have this player from the Pelicans. I know him for sure. He's a pretty solid asset. I think this is Nickeil Alexander-Walker, if I'm not mistaken. It looks a lot like him. He's shown pretty good spurts for sure, but he's just not. He hasn't shown that he can pop out yet. So I'm gonna put him as solid asset. That's pretty much what he is right now. He's a solid asset, but I think he could definitely be a pretty good player in the future as he keeps growing. Grayson Allen, another player who's also really good. Great shooter, knows how to play his role, but I would not put him at elite role player because elite role player is like your best at doing your role, and I feel like Grayson Allen still has some, some levels to reach in terms of being a great role player. Jared Allen. Jared Allen's already been an all-star, but I would have put him at elite role player or solid asset, probably solid asset, but he made an all-star, was a big reason for why this Cavaliers defense was so good this year. So I'm going to put Jared Allen at all-star. Next we have Kyle Anderson, I believe, Slow-Mo. Slow-Mo is just a solid asset. He's nothing crazy, He's slow, but he can score. He's very lengthy, can shoot, plays some decent defense, and he just does role player things, to be honest. So I'll put him there. Giannis, best of the best. Come on, the current best player in the NBA right now. What has he not proven? Has the championship, has the MVP, has the defensive player of the year, has grown into such a great player. And as long as the Bucks have him, the Bucks will always be a contender. So I got Giannis. Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo, we're doing players at this stage of their career. So if I have to be honest with you, Carmelo Anthony is a solid asset. Yeah, he had some great spurts where he was a pretty good role player for the Lakers, but he still did come off the bench, if I'm not mistaken. But he's still a very solid player and will give you buckets, probably 10 points a game, 11 or 12. So he's a solid asset. Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony's in a weird spot. He's not exactly an all-star yet, but he's not a solid asset either because he can definitely score the ball very well. He hasn't proven that he can translate, his scoring and his game, which is very electric, to winning. So for that reason, I don't think I'm going to put him an all-star yet because I still don't think he's going to make an all-star for years to come just because it's so competitive and you have to be on a winning team to be an all-star. But he's an elite role player for sure. He puts up pretty good role numbers and is great at playing point guard. He still isn't the greatest playmaker, but he's definitely a very good scoring guard, so I'll put him at elite role player. OG Anunoby. Let's all be honest, OG Anunoby has clamps. He can score. Unfortunately, he has no all-stars, which kind of, that kind of sucks that he doesn't have any all-stars. I think he should have one. But he's an elite role player. Let's be honest. He's always been great and reliable for the Raptors, but has never been anything crazy or stepped up anything crazy in the playoffs. He does put up very close to all-star numbers, but he's definitely an elite player in his role, which is 3-and-D wing. Next, we have Trevor Ariza. At this point in his career, Trevor Ariza is basically still the same player. He's a solid asset. He's not an overall liability. I don't think he's gotten there yet, but as age proceeds, it could get there. But he's always been a solid defender and a 3-and-D guy who will shoot threes. So, that's very valuable in the NBA, and that's why a lot of teams have signed him. So he's a solid asset. Next, I don't remember who this is. DJ Augustine. I don't know if this is DJ Augustine. If this is DJ Augustine, I gotta say he's just a solid asset. He's nothing crazy either. I've never really seen him play much, but he doesn't even start or anything. He's probably just a decent, solid player, so I'll put DJ Augustine there, if that is DJ Augustine. Next, we have this overseas player. I forgot his name. Denny Avdia. This is Denny Avdia. He's pretty good. He's on the Wizards. He still has a lot to scratch as a player and a lot to be more desired. But I definitely put him as solid asset right now. He still has a lot to step up and being very elite in his role. And for that reason, I will put Denny Avdia right here at solid asset. Next player I have is DeAndre Ayton. And let's be honest, DeAndre Ayton is a very elite in what his role is, and he does put up all-star numbers, but because he does not have an all-star yet, I will put him at elite role player. He is a future all-star center for sure. If Jarrett Allen did it, and they both put up similar numbers, DeAndre Ayton will eventually get it. It's not easy to have 3 all-stars on one team when you already have Chris Paul and Devin Booker on the Suns. So yeah, DeAndre Ayton is going to get there, but right now he's very elite in the role that he plays, which is kind of like getting rebounds, setting screens, a little bit of playmaking, and just finishing at the rim when he gets it. So not a hard task to do. Who is this? Is this Dwayne Bacon or Terrence Ross? I don't know who this player is, but I would assume that he is not the craziest player. He's probably just another solid asset. I don't want to put anybody on the overall liability or that you belong on the bench, because these are all NBA players and these are all very skilled and talented players. So I would not say that any of these players are unplayable. They're in the NBA for a very clear reason. So I will leave them probably solid asset above. Unless the player is really bad, it's a different story. So now Marvin Bagley. Marvin Bagley has shown a lot of hope as a player and will definitely get there at some point. And he should be an all-star at some point. You know, he's shown signs of it at times, but I don't know where he's clearly at right now. I'd say because he still puts up pretty good numbers, I'm pretty sure he puts up around like 14 and 7, 14.7 rebounds. He's not an is he a solid is he elite? He's not an elite role player. I don't know. Marvin Bagley, like, I want to be on the hype train for Marvin Bagley, but he's not playing as big of a role as Cole Anthony, OG Anunoby, and Aiden are playing on their teams as he is playing on his team. And he just got traded from the Kings to the Pistons, which means his role won't be too major on the Pistons now because they already have Cade, Killian, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. He's not going to have that big a role, so I'll say Marvin Bagley is a solid asset. Lonzo Ball, let's be honest, Lonzo Ball has improved a lot since being drafted by the Lakers and having that broken, inconsistent jump shot. Lonzo is definitely an elite role player at this point in his role. He's a great floor general. He started for the Bulls before he got injured. Can shoot great from 3, 40%. Is a great defender. He's very elite in the role that he plays, and he does it amazingly well. So I put Lonzo right there at elite role player. Next is Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba showed a lot of great things this season when he finally got minutes in what's been forever. You know, it's crazy that Mo Bamba the song blew up before Mo Bamba actually got to touch the court much. So, but Mo Bamba, I feel like even though he had a pretty good season, he's not an elite role player just quite yet. He's still a very solid asset. Next, we have this is Desmond Bane. Yeah, this is definitely Desmond Bane. Let's be honest, Desmond Bane had an amazing season. Shot amazing from 3-point. I think 43%, averaged like 16, 17 points, and is a starting. I believe he's a starting shooting guard on this team. He's an elite role player. He's elite in his role, and he will probably be a future All-Star in years to come if he can bring the points up and this team just keeps doing amazing. He would definitely be an All-Star. There's a lot of potential All-Stars on that Grizzlies team. You know, Jaren Jackson, Ja already has it. Desmond Bane, Kyle Anderson. You know, there's a lot of buckets on that team. A lot of talent. Next player we have is Harrison Barnes. Another great role player who's great in his role, can shoot great. He played a very good role for the Warriors during the finals, and he was great on the Warriors, and he's great at being that 3-and-D guy, and I would say he's definitely elite in his role. Always been a good shooter, always been reliable, and a solid defender as well. And he's proven it in the playoffs and has playoff experience and finals experience. So I'll put Harrison Barnes at elite role player for sure. RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is also a very great role player, and he doesn't have any All-Stars yet, although he should be getting one soon. I don't know where he's at yet, This is a hard one, you know, because RJ Barrett has shown the all-star flashes for sure. But so has DeAndre Ayton, and it wouldn't be fair if I put RJ Barrett over DeAndre Ayton, because DeAndre Ayton definitely is over RJ Barrett. So I'm going to put RJ Barrett as elite role player. He's yet to get to that all-star level because the Knicks just had one great playoff season, and then the next season just now, they didn't do anything at all. So this next season with Jalen Brunson they have is going to show a lot. And maybe RJ Barrett can squeeze in an all-star spot if they're a pretty good seed. But the East is looking stacked, so I don't know how that'll happen. But RJ Barrett, elite role player. Next, I believe this is Will Barton. He's on the Nuggets now. He's also a very good player. At times, he's a bucket in my opinion. He's a straight bucket. But Will Barton is just scratching the surface to become an elite role player. It's like sometimes he shows he can do it. Maybe he drops 20 sometimes, but he's still a very solid asset. He's not an elite role player yet. He definitely could be there. Nick Batum, he's very good in the role that he plays. Very good in the role that he plays. And you know, although the box score doesn't show, he's a very good defender. Does all the small little things, can shoot threes, and he's very underrated. But he's not an elite role player. Elite role players are like usually in the double digits even for their role, and just haven't had an all-star yet. So I'm gonna put Nicholas Batum at solid asset. But don't get me wrong, he's great at his role. I think this is the center that he's been on the Suns and a bunch of other teams. He's not really that good of a center, I'm sure. Yeah, I can't remember his name at the moment, but he's not a very good center. I would say he's maybe a solid asset to have, just to have a big man there. But I don't know for sure because I've seen a lot of teams just basically throw him around. But I'll put him as solid asset just because, you know, sometimes big men are valuable just to have someone, you know, lengthy and taller that can maybe decently block shots and contest them. So he's there. Next is Darius Bazley from the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's very young and has shown a lot of promise, but he still has a lot to scratch. And for that reason, I put him as solid asset. You know, there's a very interesting gap between solid asset and elite role players. Elite role players, a lot of these guys could definitely get all-stars if they step it up, but they're just not there yet, so they stay at elite role player. And these are guys that every team would pick up on smaller contracts just because they're not all-stars, not perennial all-stars, but solid players at their roles. Next is Bradley Beal. Come on, man, this is an all-star. Don't tell me he's a superstar. He has not accomplished anything winning yet with the Wizards, and I hope he does accomplish it because I am personally a Blazers fan, and I want Dame and the Blazers to do amazing. But Bradley Beal is also in the same situation in Washington, and he says he wants to win a championship in Washington just like Dame wants to win one in Portland. It won't be easy, so I wish the best of Bradley Beal, but he has to prove it, and he's definitely an all-star for sure. Has nearly led the league in points, only losing that title to Curry. He averaged like 30 or 31, so he can definitely score, but he's an all-star, I'd say for sure. Next, I believe, is I think he played for the Mavericks not too long ago. I think this is, I forgot the name of this big man, but he's a solid asset just to pick up, just to have a big man there in the middle. I don't really have to say much about him. I know he was on the Mavericks not too long ago, so I'll put him as solid asset. Davis Bertans. He had a great season that one time with the Wizards where he shot great, and then he got completely overpaid. I wouldn't say he's an overall liability because he still can shoot threes, and that's about all that he gives you. And he's like 6'8", 6'9", so he doesn't really do much with his size besides shoot. But he's a solid asset nonetheless. Spacing is very important in today's NBA, and Davis Bertans provides that at a pretty good level, so put him as solid asset. Next is Patrick Beverley, and I'm going to be honest with you, Patrick Beverley might be an elite role player because this man is an absolute bulldog and can probably lock up one of your best or favorite players. Obviously, not everybody's lockable, but he could probably lock up some of the best players, and he's great. I feel like at this point in his career, he's not an elite role player. You know, he does the small little things and everything, and he's definitely one of the best players on this tier at playing their role because he's just a bulldog on defense and a defensive trendsetter. But I'm going to put him as solid. No, I got to put him as elite role player. Pat Bev is a beast, bro. He's had the all defensive to prove it. You know, we've seen it. You've seen the culture he's brought. The Timberwolves, you know, he brought some culture there, and they made the playoffs. Yeah, he had a dramatic reaction about making the play-in. But, look, they had a great run with him, and I think he definitely had to do something with them being very good this year. So I'll put Patrick Beverley at elite role player. Next is Sadiq Bey. This is another very good player. If I was to say Sadiq Bey is actually really good and underrated for the Pistons and can give some scoring and shooting, and for that reason, actually, I'm gonna put him at elite role player. He's definitely going to be a star on the Pistons at some point. It's not easy with the competition of Cade and Jaden Ivey now, but he would definitely be a very good player and an all-star, perennial all-star player for them. So I got Sadiq Bey. He's better than most of the guys on this tier list anyways and can score. Defense is still, left to be desired, but he is a pretty elite role player at what he does on the Pistons, and hopefully the Pistons win games so he can show that he impacts. Next, I don't know this big man much either, but I think I have seen him on a team, and he's just another one of those big men that are big, and teams sign them because they just need bigs to at least be backups or third string, just to put somebody there in the center to try to contest shots, set screens, little things, but he's probably a solid asset as well. Next, if I'm not mistaken, is that Terry Rozier. I'm pretty sure this is Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier is a bucket. If I was to say Terry Rozier is an all-star or perennial all-star player, this man is a bucket. I think he's had an all-star already before, at least one, and if he hasn't, he's an all-star caliber player level. A man is a bucket. He has handlers. He's basically like Kemba. He's basically another Kemba Walker, and he's on the Hornets, and he absolutely plays good at the shooting guard, and he's been clutch at moments too. So, and he had a great season for the Hornets this last season. So, I'd put him at all-star. He's been a consistent bucket, always averaging 19, 20 points. So, I put him at all-star for sure. And Eric Bledsoe, at this point in his career, is just a solid asset. If you get him, you probably get some solid defense. If you don't get him, you don't get him. He's been left out a couple of teams. He hasn't had the easiest market to get signed, so that sucks for Eric Bledsoe. So Eric Bledsoe at solid asset. Next we have Bojan Bogdanovic, I believe. This is a very good player as well. He can get buckets. I would say he's definitely an elite role player. My man could give you 20 on any given night, and he showed that on the Kings before he was traded to the Hawks, and he showed that on the Hawks at times too. He's a very good player. He can definitely shoot, and he's a pretty good fit next to Trae Young. So I got Bojan there. The other Bogdanovic, another very great role player who looks like an all-star a good amount of nights, but I don't think he has an all-star quite yet. So he's another elite role player. Honestly, this Bogdanovic is better than this one. He gave a lot of help to Donovan Mitchell, and unfortunately, they didn't get anywhere much with the Jazz. Even when they were the first in the regular season, they still folded in the playoffs. But he's a very good player, and he's definitely elite in the role that he plays. Bobo, at this point, he's still a very big project, and minutes are definitely desired for him to play. But he hasn't shown us anything crazy. He's just shown us a lot of potential, and that puts him in a solid asset. Devin Booker, we've already seen Devin Booker for sure. All-star player. I don't think there's anything to be left out. He's definitely an all-star player. Now we have Chris Boucher. I would put definitely Chris Boucher at elite role player. He's shown he could be a very great player on the Raptors and has shown great glimpses, and I believe in him definitely as a prospect, and I think at this current time, had he had a bigger role, he would definitely be an elite role player. But he can stretch the floor, he can grab rebounds, he's very skinny, has that KD-like build, and he fits the Raptors system for sure. And I definitely say he's better than a lot of these guys with bigger minutes or even in smaller minutes, so I'll put Chris Boucher definitely an elite role player. Such an underrated big man, you have no idea. Next we have Avery Bradley. Yeah, this is Avery Bradley. Oh, he was on the Heat this last season. I completely forgot. Avery Bradley's a solid asset. A small guard that will give you pretty good defense, a little bit of playmaking. Not too much scoring. That's just not much in his game, but he's a solid backup point guard. And the Lakers utilized him pretty decently not too long ago. I don't think he played much on the Heat, but Avery Bradley's a solid pickup for sure and a solid asset. Next we have Mikal Bridges. Come on, man. Mikal Bridges is an elite player in the role he plays. Whoever has seen this man knows he plays great and elite defense for the Suns and can stretch the floor as well. He's a starter on his team. I believe he averages 14, 15 points, averages a good amount of steals, and he's just super elite in the role that he plays as a 3-and-D wing. Next we have 27 days, 27 nights. Miles Bridges. Another great elite role player. He hasn't had an all-star yet. He's definitely a perennial all-star and will get it. But I have to say for right now he's an elite role player. He hasn't cracked the all-star selection yet. He is averaging about 19 points, so he's right there. But until he gets that all-star, which I believe his teammate Terry has gotten an all-star, I'll put Miles Bridges as an elite role player, but he's definitely going to be an all-star in the future. Next we have Malcolm Brogdon. In my opinion, this is a... Ooh, Malcolm Brogdon right now, is he an elite role player or is he an all-star? I'm honestly going to go with elite role player because I believe Malcolm Brogdon might have one all-star or maybe none. I think he might actually have none, but he's right there. He's a perennial all-star just like Miles Bridges. And because he's probably going to play six-man this year for the Celtics, he's going to have to be elite in his role playing. He can't exactly be the star of his team, kind of like he was on the Pacers when he played. He was the leading starting point guard, average 20, but he will definitely give you solid defense, can shoot, can distribute the ball, and can get buckets for himself. So he's a great player. He averages perennial all-star numbers right there. I don't believe he has an all-star just like Miles Bridges. So I'll put Malcolm Brogdon at elite role player. Next we have Dillon Brooks. Yeah, Dillon Brooks. I almost forgot that. Dillon Brooks is a great player, feisty defender, does some great things for the Grizzlies, adds depth to the Grizzlies, and although I definitely believe he will be an all-star, potentially just like Desmond Bane will at some point, because he can get buckets for himself as well. He's a good shot creator. He's just very streaky, very inconsistent. Has nights where he goes like 5 of 20, and has nights where he does solid like 6 of 12 or 10 of 20 in the field. He's definitely a perennial all-star, and for right now, he's an elite player in his role. Next, we have Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown, I feel like, is another player who's very underrated. He's great as a guard, and for the Nets, I'm not gonna lie to you, for a team that does not have a lot of defense, Bruce Brown sure was the guy who played defense on the Nets and gave him some type of grit. And I think because of what I currently saw, Bruce Brown during the playoffs, he stepped up. He's an elite player in his role, and I would definitely prefer to have Bruce Brown on over my team right now than a bunch of these guys, maybe aside from Steven Adams. Bruce Brown is definitely very underrated and elite in his role. Jaylen Brown, we already know this, all-star player, has proven he's an all-star, averaged like 24 points per game, was the best Celtics player in the finals, and in my opinion, he was the best Celtics player throughout all the playoffs. I know we all love Jason Tatum, and Jason Tatum, at his best, is probably the number one guy on that Celtics team, but Jaylen Brown had a better playoffs than Jason Tatum's this season. And most importantly, I think we all know he had a better finals because Jason Tatum did not do very good in the finals. So Jaylen Brown is an all-star. Jalen Brunson, for right now, he's an elite role player. We saw him step up with the Mavericks in the playoffs and help out Luka when Luka was out those 2 games. My man is an absolute bucket and will probably be an all-star for the Knicks if the Knicks can get a decent seeding in the East. He's definitely a perennial all-star player. He can cook when he wants to. During the regular season with the Mavericks, he usually chills out because they have Luka and he doesn't go crazy. He averages like 16 points per game. But man, in the playoffs, we saw what he can potentially do when he's motivated and when it's the playoffs. And when he goes all out, we definitely seen what he can do. So he's definitely a perennial all-star, but he hasn't had that all-star yet. And we haven't seen him produce in the regular season like he's produced in the playoffs for the Mavericks. Hopefully we'll see that with the Knicks this regular season, but he remains an elite role player. Man, we still have a lot of players to go. Thomas Bryant next. This is another solid asset. He's not a great defender as a center. He's athletic. He can score a little bit, catch lobs. That's basically about all that Thomas Bryant can do. I believe the Lakers picked him up, so hopefully he'll bring some youth and athleticism like he's supposed to that Lakers team. Next we have, is this Reggie Bullock? I think this is Nerlens Noel. Is this Nerlens Noel or Reggie Bullock? Unless Reggie Bullock is around here. Reggie Bullock's on the Mavs though. This is probably Nerlens Noel for sure. Even though I think Noel got traded. Noel is a solid asset for sure. He's nothing crazy. He's a pretty good shot blocking center, and that's basically about it. I think he averages about 2 blocks per game and doesn't really average much rebounds, doesn't score much. He's just a solid rim protector. That's about it for Nerlens Noel. Next, I think this is this Willie Cauley-Stein? I think this Willie Cauley-Stein is another solid asset on your team. Just a big man I believe you'd put out there. to protect and all that. Or I think this is Willie Cauley-Stein. I don't know who this player is, but he's not a major player on any of his teams because I've seen the NBA and I've seen faces. Not a major player on his team, probably just another solid asset. There's a lot of solid assets in the NBA. Very few liabilities in the NBA. Jimmy Butler. Ooh, Jimmy Butler at All-Star or Jimmy Butler at Superstar? I'm not gonna lie, I'll keep Jimmy Butler at All-Star right now currently. He does become a superstar in the playoffs, but that is only for the playoffs. During the regular season, he's a very chill man. Takes his light 20, but in the playoffs, he does become a superstar. But we are talking overall as a player, and Jimmy Butler overall as a player is an all-star. I don't believe he's a superstar. He does become it in the playoffs, but to be a superstar in the NBA, I believe you have to be a superstar in the regular season and in the playoffs. And I wouldn't find it fair to put Jimmy over Jaylen Brown because Jaylen Brown was an absolute bucket in the finals and was pretty good for most of these playoff series. And Jimmy had a better playoffs than Jaylen Brown, but Jaylen Brown had a pretty damn good playoffs, including the finals. So I'll leave Jimmy at All-Star for now. I might move him up as we go. Next we have KCP, another solid asset. Nothing crazy, just a shooting 3-and-D wing. All the NBA teams love their 3-and-D wing, and he played a solid role in the chip that the Lakers won not too long ago. So I'll give him that for sure. He can definitely shoot. I think he's on the Nuggets right now, so he'll do them justice for sure. Next we have Facundo Campazzo, another solid asset. Very undersized guard. I believe he's 5'10", but he's a wizard. If you've seen this guy, watch this guy when he's out there for the Nuggets, logging in his minutes. He could definitely pass very well, has great court vision, is like a smaller Jokic minus the rebounds. And he's a great point guard, if Jokic is not on the floor, so Facundo Campazzo goes there. Next is Clint Capella. I would definitely say Clint Capella as a big man is an elite role player. This man does all the things of a solid center would do. He can lead the league in rebounds. We've seen that before. He can solidly definitely block shots, catch lobs, set screens, and he does that all at elite levels. The only thing he doesn't do at an elite level is play overall defense in elite, but he's a pretty solid defender, and he's a better big man than all the big men here for sure. So I'll definitely put him at elite role player. Next, I don't know who this player is much, but I'm sure because none of the Magic veteran players or anything crazy. He's definitely a solid asset. I've seen faces, like I've said, and he's not an elite role player for sure. Next, we got Alex Caruso. Caruso's in an interesting spot. He's shown a lot of promise, but he's not exactly a scoring type of player. He's a very defensive type of player. That's where his game really orientates around. And for that reason, I'm going to put him as a solid asset because although he's a very good defensive player, he is a backup guard. He's not exactly a starter, but he plays defense very elite. I'll put him as a solid asset, though. Keep him there. I think he has potential, though. I think this is Willie Cauley-Stein, if I'm not forbidden. This he's definitely a solid asset. He doesn't do anything crazy. He's just a big man there. I believe this is... I forgot his name. He's a pretty good player on the Grizzlies. I know he's a wing. I forgot his name for sure, but he's pretty solid as a player. He's not an elite role player quite yet, but I think he can definitely get there. And he's had great spurts during the season and shown great signs, so I'll put him as a solid asset. Damn, it's hard to know the names of all these players. It's not even funny. Next is Jordan Clarkson. For me, this is an elite role player. He's great at being a six-man. Has won six-man of the year. Is an absolute bucket. He'd probably be an all-star just because of his offensive output if he was starting, but because he was also on a team that had Rudy Gobert, who kept that team defensively elite during the regular season, and they had Donovan Mitchell, he wasn't going to make the All-Stars. And then they had Bogdan also starting, who was averaging nearly about the same as Jordan Clarkson. That wasn't going to happen, but he's definitely elite in the role he plays, being a bucket coming off the bench. Next, we have Nicholas Claxton. This is a very solid asset. I hope he has a great season, finally breaks out, shows he can definitely do more than just sit in the paint, get rebounds and dunk and catch lobs. Like, he could shoot, play make a little bit. I'm very high on Nick. I think he'll be a great player for sure and eventually an elite role player. But for now, he's definitely a solid asset. Ooh, John Collins. John Collins puts up all-star numbers, but he just hasn't gotten that all-star yet, and his defense is not very good. And for that reason, although he puts up very good numbers and is a great lob threat and fit next to Trae Young because his connection with Trae Young is just immaculate. He throws lobs to John Collins all the time. I'll put him in elite role player for sure. Plays a very important role on the Hawks and is an athletic forward. And he has an all-star potential for sure. It's just all about unlocking it and kind of like playing more his game on ball than just being a lob and rebound guy. Next we have Mike Conley. Mike Conley at this stage has become pretty much just a solid asset. He's nothing crazy. He did get that All-Star not too long ago with the Jazz, but right after that All-Star season where I believe he averaged 16 points per game, he had a very regressed season on the Jazz and just not looked the same. The age might definitely be getting to him. And I think at this point in his career, although he still does have value, I don't think he's as much of a starting point guard anymore. And I think he's going to be a solid asset and slow down this season. So I got Mike Conley there. Pat Connaughton, another solid asset. Just a guy who pretty much shoots and plays defense on the Bucks. There's a lot of 3-and-D guys in the NBA, and he's one of them. He's a solid player for sure, and that's basically about it for Pat. Robert Covington. I believe Robert Covington is an elite player in his role. This man specifies in being a 3-and-D player. This is literally this man's build. I've watched him as a Blazers fan, and I've seen him. This guy is committed to just 3-and-D, and he can even play the 5, which he played at time for the Rockets. He will get you a great amount of steals. He can block shots. He can shoot threes. He can play make just a little bit. But he is definitely a great player and has always been a great 3-and-D reliable defensive wing, even on teams that weren't very defensively motivated like the Blazers. Next we have, who is this? I have no idea who this is. I have no idea who this is. I've definitely seen him play before though. He is not anything crazy of a player. He's just another solid role player and asset. So that's where I put him. Next we have Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder, I believe, is another elite player in his role, another great 3-and-D wing. He's up there with some of the best 3-and-D wings, being Mikal Bridges, Harrison Barnes, Robert Covington, and now him, of course. He's definitely up there. He's played major roles for the Heat. He starts on the Suns at power forward. Great player for them too. Will shoot threes and play his defense out for sure. Got Jay Crowder there, elite role player. Look at Giannis sitting up there all by himself, waiting for another superstar. It's waiting for another best of the bests. By the way, I'm gonna make my little adjustment right now. Jimmy Butler is definitely a superstar. This man is a bucket in the playoffs. Like, his game elevates so high in the playoffs. I'm not gonna disrespect him and keep him an all-star. This man had to carry the Miami Heat on his back this season, and I'm gonna respect him by putting him as superstar. I don't know this player, but I've definitely seen him play before, and he's just another solid role player asset. Seth Curry, in my opinion, I know y'all want to put him in solid asset because he's not the best of the Curry brothers, but he's an elite role player. This man has started on his last 2 teams, the 76ers and the Nets. He's been a great shooting guard who has proven to be able to facilitate a little bit better now and get his own buckets for sure. He's so underrated. Shoots amazing from 3. I believe he's already top 5 all time in 3-point percentage. He's elite in his role for sure. Next we have the dominant Curry brother. Let's be honest, man. Curry's best of the best up there with Giannis. I don't know if best of the best regards to one player being the best of the best, but we're going to put the elite superstars of the NBA at this tier, and Curry is the best point guard currently in the NBA. No arguments. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments, but Curry is definitely the best guard in the NBA right now. Next we have Anthony Davis. We've all seen Anthony Davis. He's an all-star for sure. I think he's yet to unlock that killer instinct superstar tier to him, and the injuries have kind of bugged that out a little bit, unfortunately. He plays alongside LeBron, so LeBron does have that superstar, but Anthony Davis for sure is a superstar caliber player. He just hasn't shown it in a while. Maybe he'll be motivated this season that he's finally coming back from injury, and he'll get that done. Man, why are random videos playing on this tier list? Alright, our next player, I don't know this guy much either. I've seen him play though. He's definitely a solid role player. Most role players that play just specific roles, probably another 3-and-D type of guy for sure. Let me know in the comments if you know any of these guys. I'm pretty sure they're all solid assets. Next we have Dwayne Dedmon. It's another solid asset, backup center. No, I think he actually played backup center for the Miami Heat. This Bam is still playing center. He filled in a decent gap at the backup, and he was solid actually at times. Seemed very underrated. I haven't seen this guy play much in other teams, but he definitely was utilized pretty decently on the Heat. Next we have Matthew Dellavedova, I believe. I haven't seen this man play in the NBA for a while, but when he was in the NBA, he definitely contributed decently into that Cavs run and alongside LeBron, and he's a solid asset for sure as a backup point guard. DeMar DeRozan, all-star for sure. We've seen this man. This man is the mid-range bucket getter, certified mid-range. You know what I mean? DeMar DeRozan, he didn't have a great playoffs. He's usually not that great in the playoffs. I don't know what it is. His game takes a little bit of a hit in the playoffs, but he did have that 140-point game against the Bucks, and maybe he can finally turn it around, change the narrative this season. But this man always has, well, not always, but he had a great, amazing MVP caliber regular season, but he did not have a great playoffs. I'll put DeMar all-star. This man has proven it already multiple times. I don't know what player this is. Is this Kostas Antetokounmpo? I have no idea. It looks a little bit like him. I don't know. But even if it was or is, I'm pretty sure I've seen this face around, and it's not a player that plays too much or is a starter or even an elite role player. So I'm going to put him as a solid asset. This player as well is definitely a solid asset. I've seen him play on the Grizzlies. Nothing crazy, of course, but he's definitely a solid asset for sure. We have Spencer Dinwiddie. I feel like Spencer Dinwiddie at this point still has potential to be an elite role player and even an elite six-man, taking it back to his Brooklyn Nets days. And it's going to be a lot of pressure on him this season with the Mavericks to show that he can kind of replace Jalen Brunson, give some scoring output to go alongside with Luka. And we're going to see if Spencer Dinwiddie can turn it back like the six-man days on the Nuggets. I mean, not on the Nuggets, the Nets. But for now, Spencer Dinwiddie has looked like a solid asset since he came back from his injury. Next, we have Dante DiVincenzo, a shooting guard that can score a little bit for himself and can play good defense. Seen this guy on the Bucks already a good amount of times. He's definitely a solid asset. I believe he's on the he's on the Golden State Warriors now, actually. He was on the Kings, then he's now on the Warriors. Luka Doncic, certified superstar. This man has to carry the Mavericks franchise on his back. And although he had Jalen Brunson's help this playoffs, he definitely did a lot of work to get him in the conference finals with a team that isn't the most talented. And he's going to have to carry even harder this season with Jalen Brunson out. At least he's got Christian Wood to hopefully help him out, though. That's Luka. Lou Dort. I think at this point, Lou Dort is an elite role player. This man has showed some great promise. Got signed to a very good contract this offseason. Is one of the best 3-and-D wing players in the league, and is unfortunately on the Thunder, where playing defense doesn't matter because it won't lead to wins or any playoff berth or anything. But he's definitely one of the best 3-and-D players in the league, and he's an elite role player for that reason. Don't know this player, but I know he's definitely a solid asset. I know how my solid role players usually look and fit the aesthetic and vibe of it. Haven't seen him really play much minutes out there. Goran Dragic at this point in his career is also a solid role player. He was an all-star, one-time all-star, and even during the bubble season, he definitely still showed he's an all-star caliber player. But I think ever since that injury got in the finals, things have just slowed down along with age. And for that reason, I put Goran Dragic here as a solid asset. Next is Andre Drummond. Man, this man has been an all-star, rebounding leader, shown that he could definitely put up great numbers in the regular season, but he's just not a good defensive impact for your team. And at this point in his career, he's just a solid asset to have. He's nothing elite, nothing that will contribute to too much winning, but he will get you rebounds a lot if that's what you want. That's what Andre Drummond fits, the rebounds. Kevin Durant. Let's be honest, Kevin Durant is up there with the best of the best. This man is a certified bucket, two-time Finals MVP, two-time champ. Whether you want to count it with the Warriors or not, those are still rings. You can't take those away from him. My man is one of the most talented players in the league, and he's an absolute bucket. He didn't have the greatest series against the Celtics, but you can't always be perfect, but he will definitely bounce back. This is a top 5 player in the NBA. Anthony Edwards. Honestly, Anthony Edwards is an all-star. I know he hasn't gotten his all-star yet, but he's basically an all-star, let's be honest. D'Angelo Russell isn't an all-star anymore, and I think Anthony Edwards is the all-star for this team. Why did I put him as superstar? He's an all-star. And in my opinion, he's better than all the players here. And we saw it in the playoffs this season. He definitely has it in the bag and will be an all-star soon. And he's one of the very few players that I'm going to put at all-star, even though they don't have an all-star, because he's an all-star talent. And he only didn't make the all-star because he had Cat on his team, and he wasn't the highest seed either. If they are a higher seed next season, maybe he could be an all-star. But he definitely showed he's an all-star player in the playoffs and in the regular season. I don't know who this player is, but he definitely fits the solid asset category. Seen him probably play a few times, doesn't play much on the Pistons. He's definitely a solid asset. Joel Embiid, superstar. Talking about a man that was top 3 in the MVP race for most of the year. In my opinion, should have won the MVP, led the league in scoring this season, and is a top 2 center in the league. No arguments. Jokic and him are definitely up there. Whoever is the number 1 center for you, that's an argument for another day, but Joel Embiid is a superstar. Taco Fall, solid asset. I know he's very big, easy for him to put buckets, but with him being very big, he's also very slow for the very fast-paced modern NBA that we are in now. And that's where Taco Fall falls into, just being a solid asset who can block shots. He looks very OP, overpowered in the G League, but in the NBA, he comes back a little down to earth. He's another solid asset role player. I don't think I have to give any explanations for this player if any of you guys even know who he is. No offense to him. I don't remember who this player. I think this is Dorian Finney-Smith. Apologies. He's a pretty good role player. He had some great. I believe he had some great playoff games where he was shooting very well along with Maxi Kleber, and I put him as a solid asset. He's a solid 3-and-D wing. I believe this is Malachi Flynn. He's shown a lot of promise and glimpses of being a perennial all-star type of player, but he just doesn't get enough minutes to go out there and show it, and for that reason I'm going to put him as a solid asset. He could definitely be something in the future, but it all depends on opportunity and availability for him if he gets minutes. I believe this is Brent Forbes. He's a great shooter, pretty good shooter for sure, and that's basically about it for him. He's a pretty good shooter, and he's a solid role player for that reason. Next we have Evan Fournier. He's shown times where he looks like a perennial all-star with being able to score and all that, but at this point in his career, I don't think he's anything crazy of a role player. He's a player I used to probably consider would be an elite role player because he has a scoring punch to him, but he's a solid asset at this point. He's nothing crazy of a player. He can just get a couple buckets for himself. De'Aaron Fox. Ooh, this is a hard one. De'Aaron Fox is a very good point guard, and he's another player I'm going to put on the all-star because he would have definitely made an all-star had it not been that he's on a team that has no success in the regular season and can't even make the playoffs or the play-in. Can't even be like the 11 seed. So the Kings have really struggled, but De'Aaron Fox is no doubt an all-star caliber point guard, and he's better than probably all the players on this list. Yeah, he's definitely better than all the players on this list. Maybe Aiden has had a better career so far, but he's the best player. He's better than all the players on this list. He's a young star. Let's say had he been on a team like, a young team like the Celtics, he would have probably gotten an all-star as their starting point guard. Let's say he was on the Wizards and the Wizards came in at the 9th seed, he'd probably be an all-star with Beal. So this is definitely an all-star guard. De'Aaron Fox at all-star. Markelle Fultz, I've hated to see all the injuries this man hasn't gone through. He got signed to a decent contract by the Magic. Played a solid season that year that he got the contract, but that's basically been about it. He got injured again and came back. And there's still a lot left to be desired by this guy, but he's shown a little bit of improvement, so I'll keep him as a solid asset. Danilo Gallinari unfortunately teared his ACL this offseason with FIBA play. He used to be an elite role player who can get buckets, like average 18 points per game. But I think at this point he's just a solid bucket that will get you points off the bench on some like 6-man type of vibes. And that's where Danilo Gallinari, I think at this point in his career, is a solid asset. Darius Garland showed amazing ability this last season and got his first time All-Star. Such an elite point guard. Didn't have much of a playmaking bag coming out of college, and now he's just a great playmaker. Great 3-point shooter, has that floater on lock. So, Darius Garland at All-Star. Next is Marcus Sol. I don't even think he's in the league right now. He is playing, I believe, for Spain right now. He's a solid asset to have. A good playmaking big. He used to be a great defender, but he just slowed down much, and he's just basically a solid playmaking big who can shoot. I forgot to leave that out. He can definitely shoot. I don't know who this is. I definitely do not know who this is, but I would definitely claim that because he's on the Spurs, he's probably just another solid role player. Paul George, an all-star caliber player for sure. He showed glimpses of being a superstar, being close to having MVP caliber seasons and carrying in the playoffs when Kawhi was down, taking him to the conference finals. But Paul George is still not there yet. I think he's close, but he needs to have about 2 more great playoffs and regular seasons and stay healthy, along with Kawhi to prove how good the Clippers can be. But Paul George is definitely an all-star caliber player. Next we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai is yet to get his first all-star, but we've seen this man's numbers and how he's had to carry the Thunder even though they haven't even gotten a playoff berth and have been a low seed. He's definitely an all-star caliber player. No doubts at all. The numbers say it. His skill says it. Even when he balls out for Canada, you can see it. Shai is definitely an all-star player. Rudy Gobert, another all-star caliber player. He has the all-stars to prove it, the defensive player of the years to prove it, the Jazz being top 5 defenses in the NBA during the regular season to prove it, and him being the anchor of that. So Rudy Gobert is definitely an all-star caliber player. Next we have Aaron Gordon. Oh wow, we have the Gordons both together. Aaron Gordon is a solid asset to have on your team. He's become an athletic type of defensive guy that will shoot threes now and drive in. And he's a great guy for Jokic to find in the paint and either lob it up to or pass it to. So I'll put him as a solid asset. Next you have Eric Gordon, who is also at this point in his career a solid asset. My man is just kind of like a bench scorer, 3-point shooter. He used to be a perennial all-star player in my opinion because he could definitely get buckets. But now he's just a solid asset, you know. Devontae Graham, another solid asset. He showed promise on the Pelicans at some point, but I feel like things have just regressed a little bit now. I mean, he showed promise on the Hornets, but with having one of the best 3-point percentages last time he was on the Hornets. Went to the Pelicans and hasn't been anything crazy since. You know, he's still a solid asset for sure, though. Jeremy Grant. I think Jeremy Grant is an elite role player. He put up like 20 points on the Pistons and showed that he could have all-star offensive numbers, but he's not the most efficient either. He showed that he could be a great defender on the Nuggets when it matters most. And for that reason, I think he could be a perennial all-star for sure. We'll see how it works on the Blazers, but he's definitely proven he can be an elite role player. Next, we have Danny Green. At this point in his career, he's definitely a solid asset. My man probably would used to be an elite role player because he was just a straight sniper for the Spurs and the Raptors. But at this point in his career, you know, especially with the injuries that have been coming to him, safe to say he's a solid asset now and isn't the most consistent 3-point shooter anymore. Draymond Green. Draymond Green has all-stars, and he's super elite in his role to play. But had he not had all-stars, I'd put him here. But he has all-stars to prove it, man. This guy is the ultimate. Don't look at my box score. Look at the game, and you'll see my impact on what I do for this team type of guy. My guy plays defense, gets steals, can play make, can shoot. Didn't shoot the best this season, but he could shoot once he gets it. He's the ultimate role player, man, and for being the ultimate best role player, he's been awarded with all-stars because he just sets the culture defensively and is pretty much the leader on court for this team, besides Curry. I don't want to get my Curry fans mad. Jeff Green, solid asset, a tall player who can play a small ball 5 and can shoot threes. Blake Griffin, not as athletic as he used to be, now a solid asset as well. Can play small ball, 5 minutes. He's not as athletic, like I said, but he can shoot a little bit now. Set screens, get rebounds. Rui Hachimura, I think, definitely has elite role player potential, but he's yet to show it, and for that reason, I keep him as a solid asset. Next, we have Tyrese Halliburton. This is definitely an elite role player at this point. He hasn't gotten his first All-Star yet, but he's definitely a perennial All-Star player. Talking about a guy who can average like 18 points and 9 assists, and he's done it on the Pacers and the Kings. Not the 18 and 9 on the Kings, but he's done very close to it on the Pacers, and he's on pace to be an all-star at some point, but I'll keep him at role player for now until he gets there. Next we have Tim Hardaway Jr. We didn't see much of him this last season, but when he's playing, he's definitely an elite role player, a guy that could average 16 points per game, is a pretty good shooter, and fits pretty well alongside Luka. Next we have James Harden. He's an all-star player at this point in his career. He was a superstar when he was averaging 30s and was a pure scorer, but has adjusted his game to try to win more now and be more team-friendly with his playmaking ability. For that reason, I don't think James Harden is as much of a superstar type of push player, but tries to play more within his system a little bit of his game, and he still earned his All-Stars, so James Harden is an All-Star player. Next, I don't know who this guy is, but I definitely know for sure he's going to be a solid asset. Montrezl Harrell, six-man, has been a six-man of the year before already. I'm not going to put him in solid asset because for being a six-man, this guy has been a great player. He's averaged 16 points before. He's an absolute rim runner who doesn't shoot, and he's very efficient with his rim finishing in the paint. And he's a six-man, and he will play small ball five for you. And he's strong and athletic. So for that reason, I think Montrezl Harrell is very elite in his role as a six-man. Gary Harris, solid asset at this point. Nothing crazy of a player. Hasn't done much since being on the Nuggets, so no offense to him. Joe Harris. I think Joe Harris is an elite role player. This man shoots 40% from the three, I think, in his entire career, and has always been a sniper. Has contributed in double-digit points before, and is a very great role player. I hope he has a great season now coming back from his injury. Joe Harris is honestly a sniper. Next we have Tobias Harris. Is yet to have an all-star, although he's put up all-star numbers, but he's on the 76ers team. That team is stacked with all-star caliber players like Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, and Joel Embiid. And for that reason, although Tobias Harris has put up all-star numbers, he doesn't have one yet and isn't the most, cared about major player on that team. If you remove Tobias from that team will probably still be very good. So I put Tobias Harris at elite role player. Josh Hart. Josh Hart, I believe, is a elite role player. Josh Hart showed a lot for the Blazers at the end of the season, showing he can score and shoot and play and make even a little bit. He's a good defender. Not good, my bad. He's a great defender. He's going to show that for the Blazers this season. Has shown it on the Pelicans, and has definitely shown spurts of scoring. That if he would have went back to the Lakers like Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, I think he would have definitely shown that he's that guy. But Josh Hart, super underrated. I don't know this guy, but I definitely know he's a solid asset for sure. I think we all know that one. Jackson Hayes has so much potential as such an athletic big who can dunk easily. But he just doesn't get a lot of minutes and doesn't have the ability to show all of that. So for that reason, I put Jackson Hayes at solid asset. Next we have Gordon Hayward. We've seen Gordon Hayward, I think at this point in his career, though, even though he has the All-Stars that have shown it, at this point in his career, Gordon Hayward is an elite role player. He's good at playing this role. He averages like 18 points still at this point, but he's just not the main guy at all. I don't even think he's the second option anymore. He's behind Terry Rozier. He probably won't be the third option either when Miles Bridges is back, so he'll be automatically downgraded to the fourth option, and he's getting paid a lot of money to be a fourth option. So I keep Gordon Hayward at elite role player. Next we have Juancho Hernan-Gomez, I believe. He's a solid asset. He's nothing crazy of a player. Doesn't play the most. For that reason, I keep him a solid asset. Next we have, wow, this is a large list. I might genuinely have to do a part 2 for this tier list. So you guys might have to stay tuned for that. I don't want this video to be incredibly long. Next I have Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero has already shown it. He's definitely an all-star caliber player. Nobody quote me on this. He's 6-man, averaging 21 points per game. And don't tell me that Jordan Clarkson did the same thing, because Jordan Clarkson did not do the same thing. Jordan Clarkson did not average 21 points per game and be the second leading scorer on his team. He might have been the second leading scorer on his team because Donovan Mitchell was the first. But Tyler Hero, I believe, is a better player than Jordan Clarkson. Has shown promise as younger. And we've seen in the playoffs Tyler Hero can be clutch. He didn't play much of a role in this year's playoffs, but I do believe in him. He's definitely an all-star caliber player. He averages 21 points as a sixth man. Imagine when he starts. Think about it. Next we have Buddy Hield. I believe an elite role player. This man is a sniper. He has put up perennial all-star numbers, but I believe it's because of his off-ball game and kind of like fitting into that shooting mold. He's an elite role player. Any team would be glad to have a guy who can shoot very good from three and absolutely stretch the floor, primarily for the team. Buddy Hield is just that guy. Next we have, I forgot this guy. He was a backup point guard for the Bucks not too long ago. Played for the Cavs at some point. At this point in his career, his defense is just not as good anymore. He's a solid asset. Don't know this player either, but I know for sure he's also another solid asset. Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday, I believe, has had one All-Star, but at this point in his career, although he still puts up pretty good numbers that could be All-Star perennial, like 18 points and 6 assists, because we all know Andrew Wiggins slid with 18 points. Drew Holiday is an elite role player in his role. He has Giannis on his team and Chris Middleton, so he doesn't have to be a scorer mainly. He just has to be a facilitator and score at times and shoot good from three, which he does. And Drew Holiday's clamps, man. Such great elite defense. He's an elite role player. Next, who is this? I don't know who this is at all. I definitely guess he's on the Pacers. He's a solid role player. I know my solid role players look like. I believe this is Rashawn Holmes. He's a very good player as well. I think he's no, I think I'd honestly say he's underrated, but he's definitely a solid asset. I think there's definitely more for him to discover and to get better at. Taylor Horton-Tucker, man, this guy's stock so high. The Lakers did not want to trade him for a while, but I believe they finally traded him to the Jazz. They did not want to let go of this guy. They thought he was probably going to be the next Michael Jordan. That didn't end up happening, though, and they lost their patience because it's a win-now situation. LeBron is there. So they ended up trading him, but Taylor Horton-Tucker I don't think is anything impressive quite yet. I think he has all-star potential like all his, wagon of fans do. But I'm not going to buy into the hype yet until I see it. But he's definitely shown spurts of being an all-star caliber player. Daniel House, a solid 3-and-D wing guy who's now in the 76ers and played with Harden on the Rockets. He's a solid asset for sure to have. Dwight Howard at this point in his career, he's had such an up-and-down career, but it's one of my favorite centers because he was so dominant back on the Magic when he was healthy. He's a solid asset now. Kevin Huerter, another solid player on his team, can shoot, is tall, has length, he can play some decent defense. So I got Kevin Huerter as a solid asset. I believe this is DeAndre Hunter. Yeah, this is DeAndre Hunter. He's a very good role player. I've seen this guy when he's healthy and gets minutes, and he's an elite role player, a perennial all-star player. Hopefully, there's a lot of young guys with potential on the Hawks, and hopefully he'll have potential to show what he can do. So I have DeAndre Hunter there at elite role player. Next, we're doing Serge Ibaka. At this point in his career, he's also a solid asset type of player. Not exactly one of the best players anymore and defensive, but he can definitely still do some decent things on that end. Andre Iguodala, not the all-star that he used to be either, has slowed down on defense a lot. Doesn't play much on the teams that he's on. He played decently for the Miami Heat, but nothing too big of a role. I don't know this guy's name, but he's definitely a solid asset, I'd assume. There's a lot of guys in solid asset. Joe Ingles. I think Joe Ingles is great at his role in playmaking and doing all that stuff, but I think currently he's just a solid asset. He's never been too crazy of a player. He's just kind of like a great player to move the ball around in your system. Next is Brandon Ingram. I think Brandon Ingram, after what I saw these playoffs, on the way to superstardom, but for now he's going to stay as an all-star. He's already shown he's an all-star and absolutely elevated his game in the playoffs, so I award him with this all-star. Next, we have Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, I think at this point in his career, is also an all-star. He didn't have a great playoffs against the Celtics, and he's shown sometimes he could be a superstar in the playoffs, like that finals they won with him and LeBron. But we just haven't seen that in a while. We know this man is super talented, but he's an all-star. Next, we have Jonathan Isaac. I haven't seen this guy on the court in forever. Where has he been? He has great elite defense when he is healthy, and for that reason, I'll put him as an elite role player. He's just such a great defensive player. I don't know who this guy is at all, so he's definitely going to be a solid asset. He does not start on the Pistons at all. Probably a third string type of player. Next is Jaren Jackson. I don't believe Jaren Jackson Jr. has gotten an all-star yet, but this man averages a lot of blocks, is a great defensive player, and is so elite at the big man role he has. He played great during the playoffs and had some explosive games. For that reason, he's definitely a perennial all-star player, but he'll be staying in an elite role until he gets it. I don't know who this player is. I think this might be Josh. I forgot his name. Josh Jackson, maybe. That might be his name. He's a solid role player at this point. Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson has shown a lot of improvement on the Clippers and was their starting point guard this year. And for that reason, and him being a bucket getter and being clutch in a lot of moments when Paul George was out, I think he's an elite role player for sure. LeBron. Let's be honest, LeBron is the best of the best still. I know the Lakers didn't make the playoffs this year, but what do you want out of a 30-year-old man who's averaging 30 points per game? You don't get that from a lot of 30-year-olds, especially LeBron, and LeBron should have a bounce back season if he can stay healthy. But he's still a top player in this league. I think we all know that. Next is, I forgot his name, but I know he's a very good role player for the Suns. Has shown some most definite promise, and I think he's an elite role player for them. I believe he comes off the bench, but he's shown a lot of promise. He's athletic, he can shoot, he can play solid defense. He definitely has a lot of things in store for him if he keeps moving his way up on the Suns roster. Next, I don't know who this guy is, but he's definitely a solid asset. Like I said, I just have the vision for these things. Next is Keldon Johnson. I think Keldon Johnson will eventually be an elite role player, but for now, that Spurs team is not going much anywhere, and he's just basically putting up empty numbers, but I know he definitely has potential. For that reason, I'll keep him a solid asset for now. Jokic, superstar, top 2 center in the league. My man has carried the Nuggets ever since Michael Porter and Jamal Murray got injured, and has carried them to the playoffs as a 6th seed. This guy's a one-man system and the 2-time back-to-back MVP. Jokic is a superstar. Next, we have Derrick Jones Jr., athletic forward who can play defense. At this point in his career, I think he's just a solid asset to have on your team. Tyus Jones, one of the guys who rarely turns over the ball. He had some very great playoff games while Ja Morant was out, and he can definitely step up his game. I think he's very elite in his role and turns over the ball very little, and is a very underrated backup point guard to have on your team that adds so much depth to this Grizzlies team. Next, we have this guy from the Pistons. He's definitely a solid asset. I also peeped this guy from the Suns, another solid asset. Next, we have Enes Freedom Cantor, whatever he changed his name to. I don't think he's even in the NBA right now. I don't think anybody signed him, but he's a solid asset. He will get you 10 rebounds and 10 points, and that's basically about it. Trust me, I know. I watched him when I was a Blazers fan. Next is Kevin Knox. I don't even know when this guy is going to awaken. He was supposed to be so good, and he's just been pretty okay. If not bad, maybe I'm being nice, but he hasn't lived up to the hype, and for that reason, I'll put him as a solid asset. Kyle Kuzma is very in an interesting position. He's not just any solid role player because he can definitely get buckets, but he's not a great defender either. But he definitely has played his major scoring roles on the teams he's been, even the Lakers coming off the bench. And on the Wizards, he's a starter, so I'll put Kyle Kuzma as an elite role player. He's definitely a bucket. Next, we have Jeremy Lamb. He's another solid asset, a guy that can shoot, get a couple buckets for himself, and that's about it. LaMelo Ball. We've all seen this guy. He's an all-star player. He's a running highlight reel. Can play, make rebounds. Is the starting point guard for the Hornets and has had all the hype since coming into the league, and has already gotten an all-star and rookie of the year. I don't know who this player is, assuming he's definitely a solid asset. I'm going all the way to Kawhi, and then I will probably make a part 2 for this video. Actually, no, I'm going to go all the way to Damian Lillard, and then I'll make a part 2. Zach LaVine is an all-star player. We've seen this man. He's very athletic, can shoot threes, is a pretty decent pair alongside DeMar DeRozan. And we've seen Zach LaVine is an all-star caliber player. Next we have, this is in Jordan Poole. I believe this is Damian This is Damian Lee, I believe. He's a solid asset, not too crazy of a player for the Warriors at all. Just a decent guy who comes off the bench. Next, I think this is, I forgot his name, but he's not a very good center. I know that for sure. He's bounced around a lot of teams, and I hope the best for him, but he's not a great big man. Next, we have Kawhi. Let's be honest, when Kawhi is healthy, he's a superstar. I don't think there's any doubts about that. My man has 2 chips with 2 different teams, got the Raptors to the finals, and secured the finals in 1 year. Has Defensive Player of the Year, 2 Finals MVPs. What else can you ask for? He's a superstar when he's healthy. Next, we have Karis LeVert. This guy's a bucket. Although he's shown all-star spurts for sure, he's still an elite role player. He's a great 2 guard to have. He can even run a little bit of 1, maybe even 6-man and get buckets. He can give you 20 on any given night. And trust me, when I used to watch the Brooklyn Nets, he can definitely do that. For our last player on this tier list, because it's such a large tier list, I will probably do a part 2. If you guys want it, I would do it. I probably will end up doing it anyways because I don't want to leave this tier list unfinished. This is such a big tier list. Damian Lillard, when healthy, is a superstar. I want no doubts. This guy had to carry the Blazers franchise throughout so many years, and they had the longest playoffs appearance streak up until last year when Damian got injured and they were forced to tank. Because who's going to get them to the playoffs besides Damian? He's the only guy keeping this team competitive right now. So thank God they got him some help with Jeremy Grant, and hopefully Anthony Simons will step up in a role. But yeah, Damian Lillard, that superstar. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this video on why I started YouTube and my secret 100 subscriber special, giving you guys this really big tier list. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish it. It's actually pretty huge, as you can see. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys subscribe to stay on the radar for all things basketball.